So where are we? Well, we're at the 10th anniversary of 9/11, this very day. Some of us, most of us, are ending a retreat in which, again, I was not eavesdropping, but I can be absolutely certain that something about interpersonal relationships was dealt with. And we're also today at this Eucharist picking up a conversation which began last Sunday between Jesus and Peter, if you remember, about how to deal with problems in the community. Go to that person. But that doesn't work, take 2 others with you. That doesn't work, go to the whole community. Interpersonal relationships on a community scale. How do we handle our hurts? Jesus is telling Peter, it seems to me, in the gospel today, forgive without limits. I think we need to be very clear in our minds what forgiveness means. And the best way to do that, I think, is to talk about what it is not. It is not amnesia. It is not forgetting the hurt, as if it never happened. Forgiving does not require forgetting. And if anybody knows the secret of forgetting, let me in on it, because I don't know how to do it. But it's not required. Forgiveness is given in the face of remembering. What would it be worth if we couldn't remember the hurt? Forgiveness is not acquittal. Declaring somebody blameless without any responsibility for what they did. It's not that. People need to be held responsible for what they do. So we don't do them any favor by acquitting them in lieu of forgiveness. It certainly does not mean approval of what they've done. It's okay. Because we're not helping the forgiven person there, are we? We're giving them license to go out and do exactly the same thing again because they're not held responsible for their activity. And that's what acquiescence is, and forgiveness is not acquiescence. That's almost collaboration in evil, to acquiesce to what someone has done which is wrong. Because it takes away the possibility of change in that person. And presumably change is called for, or we wouldn't be hurting from their activity. And certainly forgiveness is not a reward, a prize given freely. So what is forgiveness? It's not amnesia or acquittal or approval or acquiescence. It's not an award, but it is acceptance. It's acceptance of the person offending, despite their actions. It's not acceptance of their activity, of their behavior, of their sin, but it's acceptance of them, despite their activity. It's an alternative to anger, which usually doesn't hurt the offending party as much as it does the offended. It just gnaws away, gnaws away, gnaws away. And then who suffers? Jesus, at the end of his instruction to Peter, has this little parable about the stewards, the slaves who one was forgiven and then refused to forgive. And all of you who do Bible study, and I hope you're all doing Bible study, know that there's a difference between a parable and an allegory. A parable has a message, boom, one message. The details don't really matter. An allegory, all the details matter. Every little thing in an allegory has a match with something else. This is a parable. This is not an allegory. The king seems ultimately to refuse forgiveness to the unforgiving slave. And I must confess, I wrestle with that. Because if the king is God in the parable, and we presume that because it's a parable of the kingdom, then is Jesus saying that unless we forgive, God will not forgive us? That sounds like he's painting a different picture of God than he had been working on all this time in his ministry. And the conclusion that I came to, and I hope I'm correct, for God's sake, is that we are incapable of God's mercy, of receiving it, unless we have a heart which is capable of giving it. Our hearts become so hardened that we even rebuff the mercy of God. Isn't that a horrible thought? But that's exactly what we ask for every time we celebrate the Eucharist. The final prayer of the community in preparation for the reception of the Eucharist is the Lord's Prayer. And we ask God, seriously, forgive us as we forgive. That is scary.